Matty signed up to serve in the Australian Army and deployed to Afghanistan as a young soldier. At the age of 22, he was told he has terminal brain cancer and was discharged. For more than 7 years, he's shared the unfiltered ups and downs of his journey through Instagram and was recognised with an OAM for his contribution to brain cancer awareness. He's since travelled to some of the most dangerous parts of the world as a citizen journalist, risking his life to report from the front line of war zones, including in Ukraine and the Middle East. At the core of him is an iron will, an evolving sense of purpose, love, and the ability to find the positives while enduring immense suffering. This is Matty Williams. Welcome to Young Blood, the volunteer video podcast dedicated to young men's mental health. I'm your host, Cal McPherson, and this is a platform for young men and their loved ones to share lived experience stories and show that no matter what you're going through, you're not alone. Suicide is the number one killer of young people, and changing that starts with speaking up. So let's do it. This episode is sponsored by Community Bridging Services, a South Australian not-for-profit creating jobs, supports and opportunities for people with disability, disadvantage and mental health challenges. CBS is all about inclusion, independence and stronger communities, values that align with the stories we share on this podcast. Willy, tell me about joining the Army.
Joining the Army, eh? That's a young man, and it's a young man's game.
You're not a young man anymore?
I'm not. I don't feel like a young man.
You've been through a lot.
Army years are dog years. It's 7 years per year, I reckon, of aging on your body.
So how many years in dog years was it for you then?
30.
Decent career.
Yeah. Look, actually, I could retire. Look, joining the Army was something I just wanted to do my entire life. Like, I don't have, like, a lot of people have this great story of, my grandfather was in this or my great-grandfather or family history. I don't have that really. Like, I had, of course, people in my family that served, but it was just what I wanted my whole life. It's all I wanted to do was be in defence. And Mum has a photo of me at 4 years old in camouflage clothing and this and that, and it just seemed like the natural transition for me out of school. Of course, I'd never go into anything academic out of school. I was definitely not that sort of student. And I don't think anyone was surprised from my parents through to, people I went to school with. So I joined up when I first started the formalities of joining when I was 17 and then turned 18, finished school, and 2 days later I was at Kapooka.
And what was it about it that appealed?
I don't know. And I get asked this all the time, and I should have a better answer for this, years and years on of doing podcasting. But I think it was just everything. I think it was the comradeship with your friends. You're out in the field. You are the pinnacle of that sort of job, and it's just everything. It was everything appealed to me, and of course, nothing is everything when you're there. You're like, oh, this bit's not good, and this bit's really good, or this is better than I thought. This is worse than I thought. But I don't regret it at all. And for anyone, any young person, if I had kids, I would, really say defence is a fantastic career, a fantastic stepping stone into something, because you grow up so quickly. Like, I was 18, 2 days out of school. I often say I was still hungover from the graduation party, and there's some 30-year-old corporal screaming at me, and you sort of have to put your big boy pants on and step into a real world.
How do you go with taking instruction?
It depends. It was a massive change when you first do it. Coming from school to the Army is, it's very strict. It's very regimented. But I will say, once you sort of progress into your career, the Australian forces, unlike a lot of armies around the world, do focus somewhat on initiative of soldiers. We have to. We're a very small army. Like, we are a tiny army in a massive country. We need initiative of forces. We need guys to be really good, really smart, have initiative on the ground. And, yes, there is absolutely a position for taking instruction of senior commander, people that know better, etc. But there's also a whole part where you need to be able to see things for yourself as well. And I don't know exactly how that works, because I think later in your career you actually become worse and worse at receiving instruction.
What qualities do you have that suited that environment? Did you find out about yourself that made you a...
I don't know. This isn't a quality, but I think the ability to be part of the team and just find your own spot in that too. Still being unique, you're not just, you're still an individual within this, but that you are part of something larger. But it's not all about you. It's not all about them. It's part of everything. And you could throw away, bits of leadership or courage or this or that. And I don't think I'm any further than any other person in any of those sectors at all than the average person. But I think, having the ability to work with people that are strangers and become friends and, have sort of trust in your fellow man as well. That, this person has been through the training, they're here, right? And I'm probably over trusting of a lot of people, but, and it ended up, and so far it's been so good for me, I guess.
What was your experience of being deployed?
When I look back on it, I realize how young I was. I was 20 years old at the time, and you think you know everything and seen and done everything. And, I think I'd be more afraid now of going than then. I think it probably got more consequences.
That part of the brain's not fully developed.
Yeah, it's not.
Age, is it?
No, it's not at all.
The risk-taking seems less of a problem.
You don't think about it at all. And people ask, like, were you scared on deployment? No, not really. Like, no. Like, you accept if something happens, but it's not like I was a single guy. I didn't even have I didn't have an apartment. I had nothing. All my belongings, which was nothing, went into storage, and I didn't own anything. It was quite sad when I got back and got a rental house with my mates. When our stuff got delivered to storage, like, this is all that I own.
A minimalist.
Yeah, by force. And, you go over there and you do your job, and it's a weird time because your whole world gets dissolved down into just this, your work, what's happening you've got no other stresses. I didn't own a car. I own nothing. You're not even paying tax when you're deployed. And our base, where I wasn't even considered a base. We considered a camp. I believe it was 60 meters by maybe 100 meters. Everything exists within those four walls, and stepping outside, day to day to do whatever jobs. And that's everything. And that is the biggest thing that you miss. There's the best book I've ever read about war in general, not even war, just about being in the military. It's called Afghanistan. And Afghanistan is a word that the Soviets used for the Soviet Afghanistan veterans, which we should have looked at the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan and then just reflected that onto exactly what happened to the US-led coalition. It's unbelievably similar. And it says that we don't miss we don't drink or miss the bad times. We miss and drink for the good times. And it talks about the soldiers' experience in the 40th Army who deployed for the Soviets there. And I think they explained that really well. You miss the really good times. And that sounds weird, maybe to people who haven't deployed into these, but you miss how simple it is.
What were the good times for you?
I think it's the overall experience of it is just you and your mates and the job. There's no other stresses. There's no other bullshit. There's no I know some people, of course, have children, relationships, and everything, and that would be incredibly difficult.
Like you're forced to focus.
But my experience was as a young 20-year-old single dude. I'm there. That's all we're doing. And it was, you are doing your job. It is right. Willy, you've got a map. We need to get to this spot. We need to go here and here and here, and you cannot go down these roads. There might be a fucking bomb there, or someone was seen there with a fucking rocket-propelled grenade or something. You can't do this. And right, get us there. Off we go, and it was just you and your boys doing the job.
What were you doing day to day?
Look, we rotated through a lot. So my job was I was armoured movements. So I was a crew commander of a protected mobility vehicle, big 10-seater armoured vehicle, if you will. And I sat in the passenger seat, I guess you'd call it, up the front, with a joystick gun and all the mapping equipment. There's mapping software, but also hard maps too, primarily hard maps, like paper maps. And basically I was navigating. That was basically my job. I was the front vehicle in the convoy. So I'd be navigating the routes, working with my one-up who was, say, in the third vehicle back, He would be the convoy command, like he would be in command of the entire convoy. But after the first few weeks, it was just get us there. And I'd be front security of it, looking out for potential targets or problems or whatever, navigation to wherever. So that was primarily my job, was armoured movements, and that was everything from there's a base that needs a spare part for a vehicle and we've got one and we need to go 15 Ks through wherever to deliver them a starter motor, through to then if a VIP needed to move. So, they were getting in, for instance, I wasn't on this particular patrol, but I believe it was Malcolm Turnbull at the time that he flew in, was coming out to our base, and that our vehicles would go into his packet of vehicles and move a leader like that through. And we were just on call for all sorts of different senior leaderships of different countries within the coalition. They might have been English or American or Dutch or anything. And then we rotated through other jobs because, of course, our base had like guard towers on it. So you'd rotate through security at night or through the day in those towers and other little bits and pieces like that. But my job was primarily just armoured movements.
Google Maps, no good over there?
No, even the paper maps fucking suck.
Stressful too, right?
Yeah, well, the paper maps, it'd be like, in 100 metres we should hit a roundabout, and it's just no roundabout. Yeah. It was very... Look, you sort of learn the city, but like Kabul is not a city like a grid like Melbourne. There's roads everywhere. There's not a road where it should be. There's overpasses that the Soviets built that now don't exist. Or the maps were like 2 decades.
And potentially consequences for going down the wrong road or being lost for too long. And they're looking at you like, where are we going?
Oh, yeah. And me trying to bullshit my way out of, no, that was a tactical decision. Like, I would be lost. Because the only way to do it, because the roads were somewhat there and they were named and everything, but was look at my GPS. And I'm not meaning GPS like Google Maps. I'm meaning like your military grid reference, a 10 or 8 figure digit. And you can see those digits counting either up or down as you're heading, say, north to south or east to west, and like go off your map. And you get very quick at reading military grid reference. And just being able to sort of, and this sounds really weird, but overlay from your GPS being like, well, I'm moving across like horizontally or vertically across these different like coordinates. And it was the only way to really do it. It sounds more complex than it is. Once you're sort of used to it, you're sort of just moving with it. But yeah, multiple times I had fucking no idea where I was and I'm trying to figure it out. And I'm just like, to my driver, I'm like, take a left, and realizing we've just had to do a big square. Like in Adelaide where you can't turn right anywhere.
And then copping shit from you.
No, being like, Willy, no, we're not lost. So it's a tactical decision, loop back on ourselves so they don't know where we're
just
going.
Scoping it out.
Bullshit. Thought I saw something. But, that's how it is. And take a moment to try and find yourself again.
So did you love it?
Yeah, loved it. Yeah, great time. And then came back and no one at my tour, no one at the last day, however long it was, 8 months and whatever. If you asked anyone, stay on, they would have. I stayed on for a couple of weeks to do a handover with the next people. But yeah, if they said we need someone to stay, everyone would have done it. Well, most guys, probably all the guys with their kids.
Did you have any scary experiences over there?
Nothing that keeps me up at night. Like, there's certain things where you're like, that could have turned out really poorly. Like, we're at this, I don't even know whose embassy it was, but it wasn't what we would refer to as like a friendly country's embassy, because it wasn't within the green zone, which is like a secure-ish, like there's still car bombs in the green zone. But that's where the US embassy and all these places now the Taliban are hanging out. That it wasn't in there. It was some other bloody embassy, and this commander wanted to go there at like the middle of the night. We had nothing ready. We should not have gone. Like, our command should not have sent us. And we basically got stuck out there. And there's all these sort of things. If you are stagnant for more than 15 minutes, your risk of getting hit by an IED, like an opportune target, skyrockets. And we're there for like an hour. And nothing happened, but the potential of what happened then, if something happened, we would have had 30 guys die. Like, we would not have. Like, we were outgunned by a mile. And there's little bits like that. And you talk to guys and you're like, yeah, we are, things could have gone really wrong really quickly. And of course, working with the British, I've never owned a British vehicle and I never want to, but the British vehicles just suck. Like I don't know what it is. Every time I watch a British TV show, I'm like, why does this look so depressing? And then every time I see a British vehicle, I'm like, I bet that is fucking unreliable. Like James Bond would have a Toyota, not an Aston Martin, because he needs to get there. And the British Foxhound vehicles they just broke down. And then the Brits, for some fucking reason, all vehicles have a NATO standard. Like we need these cables work with any NATO vehicle. And like if American MRAP breaks down, I can hook up mine to it. And because of air brakes, if you lose air, they lock on. Like a truck, well, the brakes are held out on air pressure. And if you lose pressure, the trailer will break. But the brakes will go on. The British vehicles, none of this fucking works within NATO. So if something goes down, we're just like, I don't know what to do. I guess we're just hanging out here for half an hour in the middle of the city.
Which could potentially cost everyone their life.
Yeah. Mate, the British...
Okay, so you had a severe prejudice against British vehicles
Their vehicles were that bad, the New Zealand forces were not allowed to go in them. So if the Brits were the ones who were moving someone, one of my vehicles would have to go with them because the New Zealand government was like, you are not to go in their vehicles. Like, all this. And the Brits, they all know it. But, that's all the good Brits came to Australia.
There you go. All right. No Aston Martins then.
No, we can't afford it anyway. But no, if you got that much money to spend, don't buy an Aston Martin.
So you weren't scared going to Afghanistan. No. What about when you got diagnosed?
That was probably the scariest moment of my life. Well, that was when I had the most trauma response to anything. So I had a very hard time psychologically with my diagnosis, which a lot of people do. And I didn't really know what was going on until I spoke with my psychologist, who I actually still see. And he basically said, this is a trauma. You are having a trauma response to this. And I didn't really get it at the time because at 21 or 22 years old, I believed that trauma was like thing goes bang, guy's lost his leg, that's trauma. Not you get brought into this like sterile clinical room with a doctor and he tells you that you've got a tumor growing, the trauma that can be associated with that as well. That was far more traumatizing than anything I've ever had. It doesn't worry me that much anymore, but yeah, that was a big moment in my life.
So what was your trauma response?
More like not seeing value in life, but very angry at unfairness too. So there's a great quote by a very contrarian but well-known orator, Christopher Hitchens, who speaks about if you ask with cancer diagnosis, why me? The cosmos barely has a response of why not? And you have that though. You do have that. Why me? And then I'd get very angry. I couldn't watch the news for like a year, maybe more, because I'd see some guy who's, done this terrible crime and he's going to jail for 5 years, probably less because it's Australia. He's going to 12 months. And I'd be like, but I've received a death sentence for doing nothing wrong. You get to live out the rest of your life and you've done this. And I had a lot of that. I had a lot of anger. I drank a lot. But every army guy drinks a lot, but it definitely picked up during that time. I had a massive reduction because I then went on to chemotherapy. And the two don't mix well. I have mixed them before and it doesn't go well. So yeah, it was a very, very difficult time being that young. And that's not that like it is young in the grand scheme of things, but you're definitely not like these kids that get diagnosed with something terrible.
So you were hung up on the injustice of it for a long time.
I'm still hung up on it. I'm not hung up on the injustice anymore of like I'm not self-pitying, but I think people still always get hung up on injustice we see around the world.
Well, we think bad things shouldn't happen to good people.
Right? Yeah, and we like to think that, there is a karma and there is fairness and this and that, but there's not. Heaven and hell do exist simultaneously on Earth, just in different timelines, in different states or in different people's experiences.
Has that always been your philosophy or have you gained that?
No, I think I've gained a lot of almost like philosophical feeling towards life throughout the last years, life and death, and if you will, a heaven and a hell. I'm not spiritual, but as far as what is existing, what I mean by that is not in a spiritual way. I'm not meaning an area in the clouds. I'm meaning you have people living in Malibu at the moment, and simultaneously under the same sky, you've got people living in Gaza, and even down to war and peace and all of this. So but I've become far more empathetic, far more sympathetic since my diagnosis too, which I could see why it could go the opposite way also.
What is your diagnosis?
So I have a brain tumor on my left frontal lobe. You can see a scar on my head. So that tumor is growing away very slowly. It didn't grow for a couple of years. Now, that's why I've had the scar reopened up. I had an initial scar, and then I've had another scar cut over the top, actually just down here at at Professor's rooms here. We're trying to figure out the rate of growth of the oligodendroglioma type tumor at the moment, because we do typically 3 monthly scans, and then we started seeing movement, and we've gone back on chemo to try and at least slow down this. So they can't remove it because of where it sits and the problems that come with removing these type of tumors, not only from neurological deficits, but then them growing back and all sorts. So we're just trying to delay everything at the moment. And basically, and this might sound a bit grim, and don't feel sorry for me, but is trying to delay it so better treatments then can exist. And there's a lot of that at the moment. And as pessimistic as people are about these machine learning, artificial intelligence, there's massive upside.
That's one of them.
Speeds you up, just the ability to speed up processes that, if these scientists spend half their time doing bullshit paperwork,
applying for grants,
and applying for grants and doing testing, all of this just speeds it up, and it's become so much more efficient. So there's goods and bads. Like if you work in a front office of a building, you're probably going to lose. You probably should have lost your job about 2 years ago, and you are on. Like with my health, you're on a lifeline at the moment, and that's coming. But there's going to be very good things as well.
How long's it been now?
So my initial diagnosis was 2018 March. So what's that? Several years.
7?
7, yeah. So I got one of my doctors. He gave me 5 years. So he can get fucked. I've only seen him very early on. He almost stuffed around my treatment. Actually, the problem is. And it's no one's fault, but every specialist approaches something like this with their own speciality. So if you are an oncologist, you want to do this chemically. If you're a neurosurgeon, you want to do it more of a hard way. You want to cut things out.
Yeah, like they bring their lens to it.
Yeah, and if you're a radiotherapist, you want to do it through that way, and all of this. And he was very close to getting all my treatments in sort of reverse order. 24 hours off. I had like a Sunday afternoon, a doctor called me and like, are you starting this treatment tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, I meant to. He's like, no. They're like, it just came across my emails. Like that would have been a real mistake. But that's how things go. And it can be very, very confusing because you're asked, what do you want to do? And you're like, I didn't go to med school for 10 years.
Live?
Yeah. Well, that is people's ultimate goal in this. And that should be everyone's goal. And, we should do more as a international community, if you will, although I hate that term, to search for further treatments. Cures is silly.
Mate, and funding health research.
Do a
lot more of that.
Well, I forgot the paper I was reading a while back, but it was basically how much does it cost typically to cure at least 5 years survival post-treatment of a whole range of cancers. And they came out with a figure of, it was $10 billion. And that is an extreme amount of money for you and I. But then it broke down and it's like, well, like not really, not when you consider the money that we pump into all this other like stuff around the world. And I have a defense background and I work in the military analytical space, but you're like, yeah, the amount of money that we pump into war.
The submarines aren't cheap.
We be curing stuff,
That's right. And you also think with the funding of health research that ultimately that's if you pump more money into it, it's going to be better for the government's bottom line because people are going to live
This is where a lot of those conspiracies fall apart around the government has a cure, but it doesn't. The government want people to live as long and pay tax for as long as they possibly can. If they can get someone to not die at 16 and live to 65 and have them
and not be off work with health issues.
Yeah, and especially in a public health system, and it falls apart right there. And even these big companies, and I'm not saying that these big medical companies have much in the way of ethics, but if they could develop a silver bullet drug, they would, because the amount of money they'd make would be unbelievable.
So what's been the reality of your treatment over those 7 years? Like, how constant is the chemo? How big is the breaks in between?
So I did the first chemo was, so the chemo you do for a tumour is called temozolomide. Any doctor listening to this will just be like, you're butchering just every pronunciation.
Well, you're not a doctor, mate.
You take it. Yeah, exactly. Not yet. No, you never know. And you basically, it's a long absorption phase. So it's 5 days in a 28-day period. So a week in every month, if you will, over a long time. So over typically for me, it was over 12 months. I had a month off in the middle because I got so unwell that it was 13 months, 12 rounds, 1 round every week in a month. And I have always had a very bad reaction to the drug. So my oncologist, which I've had 2, one retired, both have been fantastic. I couldn't speak more highly of them. I just have a bad reaction to the drug. I can't take Maxilon, which is an antiemetic, anti-nausea drug. I get crook off it. The danzatron tends to do not much for me, and the drug itself just makes me sick. And I experienced that for the first year of the treatment. And then I had basically like 5 years off treatment, like where we're doing scans every 3 months, and the tumour was growing at least so slowly. There was very little changes seen. Like there would be confliction between the neurosurgery report and like the radiologist report. Like they might say, oh, it's had a slight growth here, and the surgeon goes, oh, I think it's just the splice of the MRI is slightly different. So, negligible. And then we started seeing some growth in it. That's why I had to be reopened up again for a biopsy. And then back on the chemo. So I'm 10 months in at the moment, so 10 rounds of it in. And I'm recovering pretty quickly off it every round, but I do get very unwell during it. Can't eat, can't drink, nausea, the typical sort of shit. I just have a worse reaction. Like my oncologist is like, you shouldn't be this sick. Typically we don't see people this sick anymore on this drug since that chemotherapy moved, the types moved for tumours. But I get a lot of brain fog. That's the biggest thing is brain fog. That's the biggest thing that gets me, not only through the week, but then following. And that initial treatment, I thought that I'd sort of recovered, my memory had recovered and word recall had recovered, within a couple of months following that treatment. And then I reckon about 18 months on, I remember feeling a little bit different. I didn't think much of it. And then my partner, my long-term partner, she said to me, it's like, this week there's been like a switch. You're so much, and it took me like 18 months to actually fully recover. Which of course, the space I work in at the moment, presenting every day on camera is not a great
geopolitics with brain fog.
Yeah, it's not great. Thing is, it's always like some random word I can't think up. Like today, I got stuck on like exploitation. Like I was speaking about like
you said it perfectly
movement.
just then.
I did then, but I was sitting there today and I'm like, I don't know what's happening on my phone, being like, what is the word that means like moving through this area?
Yeah, and if you can do the job with chemo brain fog, you must feel like an absolute weapon when you don't have it.
I bet I will. So I finish, I've got 7 weeks tomorrow. I'll be done the treatment. And I don't think I'll do it again. Like it's just so long. It's so difficult on me. Like I think in a couple of years, if they said we want to do chemo, I'd be like, nah, let's try something else. Or if there is nothing else, I don't want to do it. Let's just monitor it. But we'll see. We'll see in time. I have no idea what my future holds for me, but I'm not upset about it. I'm not scared about it. It's just an unknown. But there's plenty of unknowns. And it's not the same. It's not the same as, people often use the analogy of you could walk across the street and get hit by a bus. Well, yeah, you'd look both ways and there's not a bus following you around trying to fucking hit you. That isn't how this is working.
If there is, we've got other problems.
If there is, you've got to fucking walk down a side street. I love neurosurgeons because you don't enter this job and succeed in this job without being incredibly just like one-minded on this. But I love how they've just got like no filter.
The bedside manner needs work.
Oh no, GPs all have bedside manner. Neurosurgeons, they just don't. And I actually really like that too. Like I like the brutality of this.
So they tell you how it is.
Oh yeah. There's no punches pulled at all. I actually really like it. Because you walk out being like, this is exactly what's happening. But they're very open with you about like, this is going to kill you. We just do not know when. Now we're hoping as long as possible. But we will see. But I'm not hung up on it. It may affect some decisions I've made. I don't think the bank knows for my home loan. They'll figure it out. 30 years and I'm like, fucking strap in, boys.
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Lily, you're fucking on you.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about that, babe. I'm just making minimum repayments, just racking up all this debt.
Holiday.
Yeah, exactly. Just on American Express. Yeah. People think you'd be hung up on. I think after a while you sort of just accept it. And I get far more upset about hearing other people's diagnoses than my own. Especially if it's young people. People reach out to me, of course, all the time, having a following, and how many people have spoken about who get diagnosed with something like this all the time. I get up about, oh man, this has happened, and that has a bigger impact on me than myself. Like I've got a scan in probably 9 weeks about from today, and I'm not like hung up on it. I used to get hung up on it. I used to be like, oh, this scan's going to decide whether I live or die, and it is still that. Like it's pretty high stakes table that I'm playing at. But I think there's an acceptance of like, yeah, but this is just how things work. Like,
is that because it's been going on for so long and, here you are, you're still here?
I think so long, and I'm seeing I think seeing the amount of like death and injustice that I've seen traveling to a lot of these states as well, it's given me this like, you're not some special entity. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And you've had 30 years longer than a lot of people get. You live in an incredibly lucky country, in a wealthy country, in a safe country, in a country with fairly good opportunity. A lot of people would kill for any of this. So I don't even know what the word would be to describe the way I feel towards it, but I'm almost like agnostic towards, like, of course, if I, in 9 weeks, if I get like, yeah, mate, it's doubled the size, it's not that I'm not going to be upset, but I think I've almost prepared myself for that. And like, right, well, this is what I'll do.
Yeah. And I suppose all this time, you and your medical team have been doing everything that you can.
Yeah, we've done everything.
Whether you want to stress out about it and all the things that could happen to the nth degree or not, it's going to happen.
Well, whether I stress or not is not going to change the outcome. Yeah. It's not going to have any effect. If anything, it's going to have negative effect.
Have you lived your life any differently because of this?
No, not at all. I learned very early on this whole bucket list idea is Hollywood happiness. It's not real happiness. And Hollywood happiness is this idea of you're doing this, so you've got money, you've got a car, or you're jumping out of a plane or whatever. And that's not happiness. Being content is happiness. The biggest thing I struggled with in the beginning was this idea that I'm not going to have the white picket fence sort of lifestyle that we think is the bare minimum almost.
Like those milestones.
That was years ago when I had that initial diagnosis and we didn't know how bad it was actually going. Like, how long do we really have with this? You can't foresee we'd ever get to this point. For all of my faults, I've become a better person because of the diagnosis, 100%. I'm more empathetic. I can see things from people's perspective a lot better. I have a lot more sympathy. I have a lot more ability to hear people out and try and relate. I think that helps me in my work a lot too, because you're dealing with some very heavy, topics day to day, every day. So, there is qualities to that also.
Oh, pardon the pun, but is it always on your mind? I mean,
no.
Yeah.
No, it used to be. It used to just be non-stop. That's all I thought. Now I don't even think about it ever. Like, it's like, oh shit, I've got an appointment today. Like, I maybe that is a coping mechanism. I don't know. But if it is, it works. I'm too busy to have it on my mind. And I've got this like, we'll see.
What about as you move towards things like, you've been with your partner for a long time, naturally stuff like marriage, kids, that is closer or could be something that could eventuate now. Does that make it harder? Is that something that, you're not, when you're in your early 20s, you got, things that are another focus, and that's something that's off in the future, and you may be resentful because, this is not a future I'm going to be able to have, but potentially you can, but then you're in this situation. So how do you think about that?
Oh, look, it does make things difficult, and it is a consideration. And me and my partner, we're both, we're in the pit of people who are in their late 20s in the Western world at the moment, of things are so expensive, and the amount of hours you have to work makes all of this very difficult. So we are essentially the problem. The problem we have is people not having enough kids young. And I every day of my life talk about the problem in the West is, if we want to fix these issues, we need to have young, while I'm almost 30 with no kids, I am part of the issue. But it's not my tumour stopping that. I don't think there's a consideration. Marriage, one thing. Kids, that's something that I'd really need to have a think through, and any decisions on that would rely on some of these scans, and it would definitely rely on having like multiple scans that are, by positive I mean no growth in them. But we're just doing our thing. It's a consideration, but many things are considerations with children too.
How does Lily deal with it? Does she ever get overcome by it, or has she got same attitude as you?
She's the strongest person I know. Look, I know that she has got overcome by it, and she does find it sad. Of course you would. But again, she's been dealing with it for so long, like me, and we met basically during my whole diagnosis fiasco. So it's just a part of our, it is just a part of our relationship. It's just another thing, just like, have someone and their partner, they do this every day. It's just something we deal with. And it's just something every 3 months we have this scan and we move forward.
What about pity from people?
No, my mates have no, mate, fuck me. I wish I had some fucking sympathy. I need to get some friends who are outside of the army. I find sympathy hard anyway. Like if the people I get the most sympathy from are people who I don't know. Who think I'd be upset about it. There's a great Shane Gillis clip where he says you can tell people who have never been around people with Down syndrome, because when you tell them you've got a loved one with Down syndrome, they pity you. Like, oh really? And he's like, if you're dealing with someone with Down syndrome or family members, everyone's like, it's fine. We just move on with it. Uncle Danny, who's Shane's uncle, he's like, Uncle Danny's the happiest person I know. And he said, there's always the people who aren't interacting with that, who have all this pity. These people sort of in the, like the oncology rooms, and it's just like, this is part of life.
Yeah, people who don't know, you think that's how you're supposed to.
And my mates just make jokes about me all the time.
Yeah, you need that.
They're fucking savages.
Yeah, well, you're probably not that nice to them either.
No. That is the army, though. The army, and every military in the world is like this, is making very dark jokes to be able to cope, to be able to cope.
Yeah, but they got your back as well.
I love them to death. I would never tell them that, but yeah, absolutely.
You're not into the emotional vulnerability?
Look, there's times for it. As we've got older, me and my mates have got a lot closer like that too. When you attend their weddings or their kids, they're having kids or whatever. And there's definitely a place for that. And I've actually tried to be more aware. I've tried to be aware to be like, okay, this is like, I was the best man at a wedding about 18 months ago. And I was like, this is Mark's big day. You need to say something. You can't just take the
You've never said something nice to him before.
You need to say something really nice here. You can't just be stuck into it about like, you're the reason why we didn't go out after, like once you met Amy, we never went out clubbing anymore. Now you can't just go on that tact because you don't mean that. You do love them.
And were you capable of that?
Yeah, I was. Well, I think I'm very good at switching that serious to non-serious way.
Yeah. But you can go there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The guys do really care for each other. It may not seem like it from an outside looking in, but they really do.
With the citizen journalism, which has become your career and started off with you going to Ukraine and you've been to some war zones. And I think from the outside looking in and knowing the bare bones of your story, you look at that and say, well, here's a guy who got diagnosed with a terminal brain tumor. So he's just throwing caution to the wind and he's dropping into war zones like, devil may care sort of attitude. But it doesn't seem like that's actually
it's because of my career ended in the army because of my illness, and I wanted to still have something to do with that space. And I have travelled around some of these war zones, and now I do less travelling and more on the analytical side on YouTube now. But it wasn't care to the wind. It might have made more. I'm going to spend $5,000 on plane tickets to go here, maybe that, but not like, I'm just running into the fire without body armor on. I think I'm more cautious on the ground than actually most journalists, because I think I actually understand what a machine gun does to you if you get hit. Like I look at a lot of journalists, I'm like, you're taking a lot of risk on, like, why? Like, this is no photograph is worth that risk, and you're probably not even going to get something going there. So I think I take a lot. Like I think everything I do is still a degree of calculation in the risk, and it is high risk. Like there's always unknown. Like when I got caught out in Orikhiv in Ukraine in that missile attack, that was this side or that side of the building, and 6 people died on one side of the building. I just happened to be on the other side of the building. Same happened in Israel, 12 months ago, when the only reason I didn't get hit by a drone was I didn't have my body armor on yet. It didn't target me because it thought I was a civilian, but if I had my body armor on, it probably from a drone camera would have hit me, And so there is that, but there's always calculation.
You're not one to say everything happens for a reason.
No, I think things just happen. I don't believe in some grand design of anything. It's just things happen, and people are all you are just a reflection of your environment at the end of the day.
What made you want to pursue that? Most people be like, that's a pretty crazy thing to go and do.
I guess it was wanting to still have something to do with the community. I wanted to tell the truth on this stuff. I think that there's a lot of nuance needs to be added to a lot of what's going on in the world, and there's an opportunity for people to do it, as you use the term citizen journalism, because the news has, for commercial reasons, they have to have a 3-minute slot at best on what's happened or this or that. And you're like, well, that doesn't explain the situation. It doesn't explain the people behind this. And from my experience of going everywhere from, there's a photo of me with ISIS in Syria, is people do evil and wicked things, but I don't believe people in general are evil or wicked. It might be 0.1% of people are evil or wicked, and I think that's probably more than actually are around the world. The people are a reflection of their environment, their upbringing, cultural reasons, environmental reasons, everything.
And a lot of it's perspective.
Well, that's the one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist.
Yeah. And history is written by the victor.
And history is written by the victor or the most powerful. Jesus, I know how things are reported completely. Like there is shit completely fabricated, taken as truth now. And I'm like, how easy would have it been when you had one dude who was literate?
No way of checking it. Yeah.
Like, Simon, fucking write down that we won that battle and we had 200 dudes and they had 50,000. Like, the more I learn about history, I'm like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because I would have made up that too. If I was a Spartan, there was only 300 of us and there was a million of that. Like, today, like, Zelensky completely lied about these figures. Now, I get why, because propaganda is a part of war. It's something you need to accept as propaganda. But I'm like, there is not one scrap of evidence to back up these figures. There's a lot of evidence to the contrary. But I'm like, that's just taken as truth. And I'm like, that's so interesting to see how that's taken as truth, let alone like what would have been in history, like we said, when there was one person in the village who could write.
Well, now we've got the opposite that's true.
Yeah. You've got these. Well, I think the more voices, the better. But you do get this over voice of people that don't know what they're on about. a lot of the time too. I won't call out who's the biggest one in Australia, but
it's both ends, both extremes.
Oh, it's both extremes.
Shouting the loudest, and then there's the vast majority in the middle.
Vast majority in the middle.
You don't hear from.
Oh, absolutely. This is
because it's boring compared to someone. Well, not boring, but it doesn't.
No, you go the
make
extreme.
as viral a reel.
You're either Nick Fuentes or Abby Chatfield. You're one or the other. You know that is what people are attracted to. And if you try and sit in the middle for nuance.
Because if you want to get,
it's very difficult.
If you want to get the most attention, it's half people hate you, half people love you.
Yeah, but you know, you also don't need to do that. I've made a career of adding nuance to things. I made a career of making 40-minute videos a day, trying to just add nuance and perspective to individual events going on.
And that's great because there is so much demand for that. But
there is demand,
it's a lot more
but
work.
I'm never going to be the biggest. I'm never going to be the biggest, or everyone can hate you at once. Like, you know, I will say that, you know, like today, talking about, well, Russia's occupying this and blah, 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 and this is, you know, bullshit that this has happened. But also Zelensky's fucking lying about this. So everyone hates you at once, or everyone loves you, or everyone's, you know, it feels
I've got a lot of respect for that, because rather than just subscribing to tribalism for the sake of it, and because it's easy and because it feels good, because your side will always back you, and so that's like comfortable in a way. Going the middle ground and being able to see both sides and seeing pros and cons and saying, yeah, they're kind of right about this, but they're kind of right about that. And like you said, sometimes everyone's like, well, fuck you for not backing my side.
But that's just what it is. You know, it's just become, you know, for me, it's become a career, and I'm sure for a lot of other people it has. But yeah, you're never going to be these super loud voices. But most people are, most humans are rational people.
And I think there's just such a need for people who can be in that middle ground and actually paint a
need for it, just not
picture, and actually talk about the history of situations, particularly like what you've been involved in reporting, where it's not just, hey, there's an evil bad guy over there and he's reacted to this one thing, and that's all very black and white, and we're not going to ignore the hundreds of years of history.
Look at Israel and Gaza. You're like, the two perspectives is, you're like, yeah, well, Hamas is a terror organization who operates with terror tactics. That is a fact that everyone. I don't think any reasonable person really disputes that. But at the same time, we can't kill, because at the moment there are 3 busloads of children killed every day. That's how many children are dying. That's also a bad thing. Terrorism is bad. Having fucking bombs hit a hospital is also terrible.
Both things can be true.
Like, both things can be true. You don't have to be binary. And I talk about this a lot. And I'm like, it's so funny that we live in a culture that is obsessed with things being non-binary, but your political visions have to be very binary.
Have to be binary.
I'm like, hang on, so gender's fluid, but I can't think
and
that
you have to be binary or
bad,
non-binary.
but bombing children is bad too. Like, are you fucking serious? I can make up what my dick is, but I can't make up a political decision. I'm like, you know, and that annoys me too.
Well, there's contradictions all over the place, isn't there?
Well, it is, and there's perspective to things, and even down to that gender thing. You talk about experience, people's lived experience. And where do you find that? Where do you find the relative truths, and where do you start objective truths? And that's a lot of, you know, it's very funny to see how society actually acts with objectivity and subjectivity, because you do have massive cultural differences between countries and states.
Is there such a thing as objective truth being a debate?
Well, I think, you know, where I would sit is there are things that we have to take as objectively true. We have to say that, yes, that is, you know, in a liberal society. I don't want to go too deep into politics, but as a liberal society, we take inalienable rights as we all have objectively. Everyone has inalienable rights. Now, I know that it's, you know, you can also say it's subjective, but I think there's certain things like as far as gender is objective, it is XX or it's XY, but your experience can be subjective. But this is just adding, it's adding perspective to things, and it's people things don't want to hear. And if you go too subjective, you end up in this loony bin world, and if you go too objective, you end up in like ultra nationalism, and you're like, people have experiences, but there's also things that are just true.
Yeah.
Like, so it can be very difficult trying to float between and find a happy. And no one finds a happy
But
medium.
we've got to have objective truth. There's got to be structure. We've got to be able to look at something and say that's real or that exists. That's true.
You got to go. This is
because if you got no borders and no rules, then and nothing's real, right? Then everything falls apart.
Yeah, exactly.
So we can't do that.
There is. Yeah, you can't.
But if there's no room for subjective experience at all, and it's just like no, it's this or it's that, and if you're not that, then fuck off. That doesn't work.
Yes. No, exactly.
Either.
It can't just all be subjective, or it can't just all be objective, and that's where you see these absolute, like, the division in politics at the moment that I see is this postmodernist thinking, if you will, that everything is relative. It's just relativism. Everything is relative, from gender to work to experience to economy to buying a house to all of this is that. None of it is objective. And you're like, we need somewhere in this. I think a lot more people are far more centrist than the media or bloggers or whatever
like we've said, we don't hear that.
Yes. There's a great saying that is a great question will silence 50 academics, but 50 questions won't silence a fool. And I'm like, that is unbelievably true. That it's funny, the more I learn, the more I read, the more I know, the less and less confident I am on a lot of my opinions.
That's the mark of a wise man.
Oh, mate, I don't see why people wouldn't want to educate themselves more on a topic that they speak about. And also, holding those you agree with to a higher regard than those you disagree with is very dangerous too. And this is the thing, is if you...
Well, because that's echo chambers.
You create this echo chamber, and your algorithm isn't it. Like, I guarantee if you deleted your TikTok and then re-downloaded it and you just liked, right-wing stuff.
Oh, you're in a different world.
You'd end up in this world. And if you just liked, left-wing stuff, you'd end up in this different world. And that is dangerous. That's pushed around by algorithms massively. And the algorithms,
and that's the norm, because we like to have our views confirmed and reaffirmed.
But it's fine also to, no one thinks you're an idiot. No one thinks this. If you research something and sort of start changing your mind. There's things I've thought completely different on. And I think most people actually see this as a very strong signal of a person being able to actually, I think that, I've changed in this way. Now, certain people may not like you for that. And I'm telling you right now, they're not your friends. And, I've had a lot of people, I liked following you in the beginning and I don't agree with this. And I'm like, that's your problem.
Cool. Yeah.
I don't care.
Being open to change is being open to learning, is being open to growing, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're saying, no, I know everything now. I'm a closed book and that's it for me forever. Yeah. And a lot of people approach things that way, but that doesn't make for much of a full life.
No, not at all.
And it's a good, if you're changing your opinion, that's good, because it means you're putting an effort, you're thinking about things, you're not just going like, oh yeah, whatever they said.
Oh, absolutely. And read. Like, I know no one reads anymore. There was a thing the other day, the average Australian reads 4 books a year. I'm like, that statistic's bullshit. Like,
less.
No way. Like, firstly, that's average. If you take median, it'd be very different. Some people do read 100 books a year. One of my neighbours who's a lifelong academic, fucking unbelievable. He reads like 4 books a week. I'm like, wow. I struggle to do a book a week, if that. But like, read and enjoy, because even if you're just reading whatever, it does actually really help your ability to critically think. Like, just the time, I find it fairly therapeutic. I think for young men, reading will do a lot for you. I think because most men, or at least men in my circle, I guess, they have no ability to meditate. And I've never meditated in my life. I wouldn't even know how. I don't think I could do it. I tried to do one of them salt floats once and almost bloody fucking terrible. I'm like, why am I fucking naked in here? But like, I actually find it very therapeutic. I think a lot of men get so much out of that, and it's so accessible. It's like, you can, like, Penguin Classics are like $8. I'll fucking send you one if you're that desperate. Like,
yeah, and you can even read fiction if you want. It doesn't have to be
smart.
that. Doesn't have to be that serious.
Like, no, it does not have to be that serious. But I think a lot of people grow a lot out of that, because I actually notice when I'm doing more or less, because I speak every day. I speak every day for half an hour to sometimes 3-hour podcasts. I'm very aware of when I'm sort of on and off. Now, the treatment is difficult, but I actually can notice my ability to think when I'm reading and when I'm like done less reading for the week, and I really notice it. And you don't need to do that much. Like, if you were to read 3 pages of a book a day, you would be far above the average.
Yeah. Well, I could tell that you read a lot just because of your articulation and the way you fire off streams of consciousness
Oh,
in that way is rare. And also, I mean, great to be able to be a more impressive communicator, but just like you said, it's so good for mental health to read. Like I read most nights and it puts me to sleep and it calms me down, and everything else is probably you looking at a screen, and like not that you can't read off a Kindle or whatever, but I love to just hold a book in my hands so that at least there's one thing I'm doing that day that isn't staring into a screen. And I had years in my 20s where I just didn't read, like just went away from it.
Oh, yeah.
Both my parents are English teachers, so I was always there when I was a kid, but then have come back to it, and now it's something that I do all the time, and I think it's just like a massive win for mental health.
It's fantastic. And this is the thing is, I think people have this idea it's like dorky, and then you're like, dude, read like Nietzsche, and you're like, this dude's
you're like, knowledge is power, brother.
Fucking hell, like, give you a foot up the arse on some of it too. And even like things like these, like having like deeper conversations with guys too. Like I'm very privileged to be able to do this all the time.
It's one of the main reasons why I love doing this show is less about necessarily expertise, but just hearing other people's experiences and being able to see life through a very different lens to my own. And it always gives me that perspective.
Yeah.
And it is such a gift to have that opportunity, and so rare. And it's why I do this for free, because I love it.
Mate, well, it's a really good thing. But where I was going with that is like people should have with your mates or with your partner or whatever. Don't shy away from having more like in-depth discussion and finding a happy medium or being in disagreement. I think disagreement's great. Like the best conversations I have with guys who work in my field is when we disagree on a topic and trying to find a perspective on something.
The difference being that you're willing to hear the other person.
Oh, you need to be willing to hear it.
And say, but why do you think that? And then also potentially being open to conceding a bit.
Yeah.
Rather than what we see all the time, which is agree with me, or if you, rather than let's argue about a particular topic or a subject and tell me what your opinion is and why you think that, it's I'm going to judge you overall as a person based on whether you hold a particular belief or not.
Yeah.
And not I disagree with you on that. It's you're a bad person and I'm not going to have this discussion.
Yeah. This association of disagreement and that someone's a bad person is so ridiculous that you're like, hang on, so I disagree with you on this single topic. We probably agree on 100 different topics, yet we can't be friends because of this. Like that is just,
but it's also
that
just
it's
that easy
danger in
approach, because if I do that, right, I get to feel like I still have the power and I don't have to reveal that I actually don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because I can say, we're not having this discussion because deep down I know that I don't actually really know what I believe or why I believe it. And if we did have that discussion, I might realize that I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I vote this way because my parents did. Like, you know.
Well, some version of that, or I vote this way because I saw a reel about it.
Yeah.
Like,
well, yeah, that's it. Always finds me funny. I think we spoke about those algorithms before, and it's funny because there was a YouTube, because I'm sort of in the YouTube sphere, I guess. Because I'm a partner with YouTube because I get paid, it's not as glorious as it sounds, but you get like emails off like shit going on at headquarters and whatever about like, oh, this is what we're updating and this and that. You just delete. But there was one about like the algorithm and how like AI is driving the algorithm to get you more watch time. And I'm like, hang on. So you're telling me that the algorithm is pushing people into like echo chambers, but then it's the AI is pushing this echo chamber. At what point is there like human interaction? Like, is the AI deciding our own echo chambers, which is happening? These echo chambers are being so just pushed by a machine. I'm like, that's scary to me. Like that is very scary to me that it's like there's not even any human interaction in this.
There's no crossover.
You're getting shown this like real, and this is why people are becoming more extreme. Like the sides of politics. Like if you look back at the US political debate, the Republican and Democrat debates like 15 years ago, it's like, I think he's a good man, but I want less taxes or I want more healthcare. Well, now it's like, he's a pedo. And it's like, this is, whoa.
Well,
and this is just a reflection.
And in the past, everyone was watching or reading about the same thing.
Yeah.
And now objective truth being up for debate and what's real and what's not, who knows at all times. And so chaos ensues.
Yeah.
Willy, you're a very interesting man and we could talk for a long time. You've got a great brain. Can you just tell me the way that you perceive death and your own death and how you've come to terms with that?
I want to experience my death. Death is the final act in the play of life. It's the final experience you will have. I'm not spirit. I don't believe in afterlife. I think there's just nothing. The concept of nothing is very difficult for people because it's like, well, it's dark. No, it's not. It's just nothing. You don't remember anything when you were born. It's just that, again, you're just back into space dust. But I want to have that last experience. I don't want to be dosed up on drugs. I want to be a conscious and there and experience that like, oh, fuck. Like, but I don't see it as, there's tragic deaths, but I don't see death in of itself as tragedy. It's part of life and we're all accepted that that's going to happen. But of course there is tragic deaths. There's a distinguishing factor in that. But I think life needs to be more celebrated. And we as a culture, I think, do that poorly. And, you know, my relationship with death is that it's coming one way or another. It's either coming more quickly or more slowly. We just don't know when. The only thing that I'll miss is experience with people. It's not, you know, you're not going to lie on your deathbed and think about, I wish I had an Aston Martin. Like we spoke, you're going to lie.
Definitely not an Aston Martin.
Yeah, definitely not fucking Aston Martin or a British Foxhound. As far as death, I just see it as something that's coming one way or another. And of course, I want to live as long as possible. But I don't want to live forever. I think the finality makes life very special. As much as I want people to live longer and have better health outcomes, I don't want people to live to 150. I think the finality of our sort of 80 to 100 years on the planet that a lot of people get, I think that makes it very special. I don't know how we would change as humans if that started really extending. And I know that may be very dark to some people and like, you want people to, I don't want people to die, but I think the finality of life makes it special. And that's why I think I approach life in a more sacred way than some that actually believe in an afterlife. Because I'm like, no, I think this is it. Like, this is the play and there's a final act in the play and then it's fucking all over.
Well said, man. And you're making the most of it.
I try to. I'm going to go sit on the couch and watch Netflix for fucking 6 hours tonight.
It's all about balance.
Yeah, I won't be reading. I'm going, fuck this. But no, people should be more proud of themselves. I think Australians are shocking. Culturally, we are very, very bad at young, like men being like proud of themselves at all. We have terrible tall poppy syndrome in Australia. Like, it's shocking. I think it's the worst country in the world for having tall poppy syndrome of people trying to succeed and do something. But, you know, people need to have a look back and be like, oh, I've come a long way.
You sure have, man.
No. You just did it. To do the thing. Yeah, I know. Fucking hell.
Thanks, Willy.
Thanks, mate.
That's it for this episode. If you like what we're all about, support us by following Young Blood Men's Mental Health on Instagram and Young Blood Mental Health on TikTok. Every podcast episode is recorded in professional quality video and they're all up on our Young Blood Men's Mental Health YouTube channel. So please show some love and subscribe. You can find everything there is to know about the podcast at youngbloodmensmentalhealth.com. And most importantly, please share these stories with anyone in your life who needs to know they're not alone. We're all in this together. Catch you next time.